Nice.
All right. Hello, everyone. We'll give everyone a couple of minutes to join up, and then we will get this kicked off. Appreciate your time today on this beautiful Thursday morning or afternoon, wherever you may be. If yeah, maybe folks want to participate, just let us know where you're calling in from today. Kansas City. Welcome, Kelly. Guadalajara, Mexico. That's awesome. Welcome, Alejandro. Nice. Where the heck is Kuna, Idaho?
Baby. It's right outside of Boise. Like good old
Okay.
flyover state.
Nice. Nice. Sawyer's in Beijing. Hey, we got a Portland, Oregon in the house. What's up, Russell? San Antonio, London, Austin. Nice. Almost got the whole globe covered. Philly,
Jordan.
Charlotte, Milwaukee, Oregon. Nice. Hopefully still a Blazers fan. Jessica. Let's see. London, Eric's basement. Awkward. Let's see. Boston. Another rally. Santa Barbara. Terrible place to be, huh, Spencer? Sounds awful. Brussels, Europe. Robin, welcome. Awesome, guys. All right, we'll wait maybe 30 more seconds and then we'll get this party started. We know it's a Thursday. Everyone wants to learn about sales and what's working this year. Things may have gotten more difficult in the last couple of years. We all seem to have noticed. Maybe things have changed. But one fact remains, right? There are still some of us having success in the market. So we'll talk a lot about what's working, what's not today. Yeah, excited to gather your feedback. If you feel like chiming in the chat, go for it. If you want to chime in and make a comment, we'll dare to leave the vocals open as well, so folks can chime in. If we get some feedback, that may change throughout the course of the webinar, but we'll see how it goes. And yeah, I think let's just see if any other Brussels, Europe. Hello from Poland. Nice. Welcome, Jacob.
Wow.
Got some
Nice.
nice international vibes for sure.
Yeah, put it
Sales
on.
is
Cool.
global. All right, y'all. Well, we'll go ahead and kick off some introductions and get this party started. Josh Gillespie here, head of growth at Aomni. We're a five-person AI startup focused on building research agents for salespeople. And yeah, excited to bring a really awesome panel together of sales, revenue, thought leaders that I've had some experience working with in the past. So today we have Lindsay Boggs, VP of Business Development at DG Matrix. Lindsay, anything you want to say about yourself?
Yeah, I'm here in Raleigh, North Carolina. Excited to be here today. Big advocate and I love Omni. Use it every day. And thank you for having me. Really excited to be here and chat with you and Eric and David.
Awesome. Yep. Go check out Lindsay's TED Talks, guys, if you haven't yet. Yeah, she's put out some great content historically that's worth checking out. And then Eric, the self-proclaimed Bob the Builder of Pipeline, the head of sales at ComSor. We need some type of WWE theme song, I feel like, for you, but welcome,
Where's
sir.
my
You want to
belt?
you
Where's
want to
my
say something
belt?
about yourself and your credentials?
Nah, man, you scraped the bottom of the barrel when you invited me. Let's be honest. No, with this group here, man, I'm honored to be a part of this conversation. I think it's going to be a lot of fun. If it's anything like to the powwow that we had on Monday, I turn my hat backwards proactively. Nah, man, excited to be here.
That's awesome. No, appreciate you. Yeah, we had a few cancellations, but yeah, thanks for filling in. No, just kidding. Um, and David, the man behind the Omni platform, CEO. Welcome, sir. Thanks for always throwing these parties for us. Anything you want to say about yourself?
No, I mean, this is great. I love doing this stuff. It's always great to connect it with everybody in the industry. Obviously, like a really interesting time right now, right? A lot of stuff happening, a lot of tech drama, which I'm sure we'll cover. So yeah, so let's get the show going.
Yep, some interesting news articles in the last couple of weeks. So, just to kind of set the stage, I think we're all here today because, in general, we probably find sales to be a difficult job at times, right? Even when maybe the golden era of SaaS or when times were perhaps a little easier, sales has always been a difficult job, right? None of us probably as children grew up wanting to become salespeople. Inevitably, something happened probably in our lifetimes that made it necessary for us to become more business minded. But let's fast forward to today. It's 2025. It feels like there's a general sentiment in the world that, especially on the B2B side and in tech sales, things have gotten more difficult, right? Like the efficacy of our email outbound campaigns and cadences is going down. The efficacy of our cold calls, our warm calls even appear to be going down. And we're reacting to that, right? Like we're investing in personalization at scale types of solutions. We're investing in power dialers to make 1,000 calls at once. Question though, to kind of get things started, Lindsay, like has sales in your view really gotten harder and more difficult the last couple of years? And if so, why? Like what's changed about the last couple of years and like what do salespeople need to do about it?
Yeah, great question. Walk back to the year 2020 when COVID was going on. There was a very big movement to be delicate in your prospecting because there were very uncertain times in the world of COVID. And I remember watching thought leaders and going to webinars like this, trying to understand how do you get attention of a prospect when everything is so awkward and, there's a lot of turbulence out there. That was when the whole "I hope you're doing well" first email came out, if you recall. That was really popular. Fast forward to 2022, 2023, then it becomes public shaming on LinkedIn with SDRs or AEs prospecting somebody. The prospect will blast that person publicly on LinkedIn saying like, this is a waste of time. You shouldn't be asking if I'm doing well. So yes, times have shifted. And I was just telling Josh before we started, 5 years ago, Harvard Business Review came out saying that it took, you know, 5 to 7 decision makers to make a decision. Now, I would love to see that report again because I would imagine it's more than 10. So yes, it has gotten harder. Yes, deliverability is a challenge. Yes, the messaging has to be on point. And there are tools out there that can help you, but fundamentally, I believe it has gotten harder.
That's interesting you bring up COVID as kind of like this event, right? That kind of changed things because, yeah, it was a weird time period that somehow feels like it was already a decade ago, but really wasn't, right? That long ago. And it changed things because, yeah, we went from maybe challenger sale minded to like this era of corporate empathy and needing to make sure that people are safe and healthy first before we broach like a
Yeah.
business topic. Meanwhile, businesses still need to run and grow regardless of the times. Eric, how are we feeling about sales the last couple of years and how things have changed?
I'll piggyback on Lindsay's statement. I would actually go as far as to say it brought in a whole new eclectic of sellers. And I'll throw myself in there who migrated throughout that COVID from a B2C to now B2B sales. So now we brought in this whole new idea of this new age seller, these people that came in with some different tactics, different ideology, but then also we branched out to remote working. So that brought in a whole new set of, call it challenges, let's just call it like a ripple effect of compounding motions, be it cold calling or cold outbound efficacy to tactician points, to even the adoption of LinkedIn, to the migration of LinkedIn and the noise that it's creating, to even the development of like what is needed in your tech stack today. So now we're throwing all of this new and noise and a bunch of stuff in the market, and people don't know what to do. So we're trying to do what we used to do. We're trying to put a new twist on things. We're trying to do creativity is up to abundance, but I think it's the most that most people are lacking.
Creativity is an interesting topic, right? I've also heard people kind of espouse authenticity. I feel like both of those needs come from what you're talking about, which is like this oversaturation of generic or maybe even AI created sales messaging in the space, the volume of which in all of the channels has gone up, which just means even like no matter what you say, even if it's like the perfect message at the perfect time to the perfect buyer persona, the likelihood that it gets ignored is perhaps higher than ever. Would you guys agree with that, Lindsay?
Yes, 100%. I was with a prospect last week who has become a friend of mine. He's a mentor to me. He is a C-level of a major retailer that will be anonymous for this exercise, but he showed me his phone when I had lunch with him and how many salespeople email him per day. And he actually takes the time to respond to each and every one of them. But when he can tell it is not
Wow.
personalized or not, if it says like, hi, first name, doesn't respond to those, but the ones that have the personal touch, he responds to every single one. And I'm talking at least 100 a day. Then he gave me his LinkedIn app and said, look at how many outstanding connection requests I have. He had like 700. And he was like, you decide which ones I accept, you decide which ones I ignore. And I was like, this is a big task. Okay. But yeah, I mean, to get into the inbox is number one, to be relevant is number two, to be timely is number three. And so there is a lot of noise out there. You have to stand out from the crowd. And I have exact tactics on what I do to do that.
Can we talk a little bit about that, Lindsay? Because I know you've said in the past, like your sales superpower is being able to book a meeting with anyone. And I've seen
Mhm.
you do that in our experience together. Like,
Yeah.
how have your tactics changed maybe over the last couple of years, or what's working most for you now?
Yeah. What's working most for me is video in their DMs. So you send a blank connection request, blank connection request. When they accept you, don't do it the second they accept you. That's called spamming. You want to do it, timely, that maybe afternoon or the next day. I send a video through the LinkedIn app, not a video that I record on my iPhone, but through the LinkedIn app. I send a video introducing
Oh,
myself,
wow.
thanking them for accepting me on LinkedIn or thanking for the connection on LinkedIn, referencing a mutual connection in the video, and then referencing something that's relevant through what I find through Omni. So, there was recently a merger, there's recently acquisition, mentioning something that Omni has produced for me to be relevant and timely. And then I get a very high response rate to those videos. Other tactics that have worked for me include referrals, using Sales Navigator to see who knows these people that I'm trying to get in touch with and asking for a referral, and then ghost writing them a message. Josh, you and I did that in the past. And then multi-threading is, yes, still a very hot topic, but I think too many people put their eggs all in the basket of like email, 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 call, email, 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 call. And that's just too much. We have to multi-thread in
Yeah.
the right perspective.
Hmm. You mentioned like networking in, I imagine that's kind of a big piece to like making the outreach feel warmer or more authentic or organic kind of.
Yeah, absolutely. Like finding something relevant, finding a mutual connection, having that person agree to having you use their name is everything. Referred by has the highest response rate of all subject lines.
Nice. Makes sense. Ooh, that's a good tidbit. What about when it comes to making videos? This is something that I feel kind of uncomfortable doing a lot of during the day. Like it ends up taking me 5 to 10 takes. I could spend a half an hour making one video. You've got this
Yeah.
streamlined, I assume, to kind of be quick with
Yeah.
it.
If I'm selling to a retailer or a bank or somebody that is in my backyard, I will physically go to that location. So let's say it's I don't know, Walmart. Let's say I want to prospect Walmart. I will go into the Walmart parking lot. I will put it on selfie mode in the LinkedIn app and
Oh wow,
wait.
that's legit.
Oh yeah, I mean that is how people, and if you are
Feels
actually
real.
truly a customer, tell them you're a customer, because that puts them in the seat of like, okay, I should respond to them because they're a customer. And if nothing else, even if my answer is no, I want to be respectful to that person.
Do you think, like I've seen a lot of AI solutions on video generating, right? Like you create an avatar of yourself and then you feed it a script to maybe be faster. Do you think those solutions will work well to similar efficacy? Or are we getting away from that authenticity a bit of face-to-face connections? If someone can tell I'm sending them an AI video, it probably won't work as well. Or any thoughts there?
Yeah, I personally wouldn't do it because I believe my touch and my human element is going to get me the meeting. That's not to say that it wouldn't work for somebody else. Maybe somebody that's scared in front of the camera, maybe somebody that is practicing or just now starting evolving into video,
Mm,
it could work for them. But I have found
yeah.
the more authentic and true you are to who you are, the better you're going to get results.
I tend to agree, right? Like real strategy, real connections tend to come from slowing down, right? And in the last 10 to 15 years, it feels like we've built a lot of technology to speed up our volume-based approaches in a way that's made sales maybe a bit reactive because now we're waiting for signals, right? We're looking for who opened my email, who clicked on a link, who did this, who did some action or event that like leads me to believe the time is now for me to outreach. A lot of that reactive tech gets a bit away from who's my ICP? Who are the 10 top prospects in my territory that I know will move the needle for me? How about I develop a strategy to go after them instead of like waiting and reacting? So I would tend to agree on all those fronts. Like it's worth slowing down and making good content specific to a prospect that really matters for you.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean,
David, did you have
I
something
will
to add?
add, yeah, I will add that I think this is such a good point. I think the other way I like to think about it is if whatever you're doing is easily replicable by everything else, right? Like the whole point is to stand out, right? You can't stand out if you're doing what literally everyone else is doing. So, I know there are like a bunch of automated like AI prospecting, AI video, whatever solutions. And maybe, on the margin, they do work a little bit better than automated emails, but it's never going to actually be as unique, right? It's never going to be as high converting as what Lindsay's doing, which is actually just showing up and doing the work of like going in front of retail stores. So I think
Yeah.
that's always the kind of mindset is if what you're doing is easily automatable, then everybody else is more or less going to catch up pretty soon, right? That if you're
Yeah.
going to use intent signals, everybody else is using the same intent signals, which means that the people that's giving off the intent signals is going to get spammed with 100 emails because everybody gets the same intent signals.
But
Right. And I think, oh, go ahead, Lindsay.
what
Yeah.
I will say is 10 years ago, almost to the day, I was standing on stage at a LinkedIn Sales Connect conference with Shaquille O'Neal. There's the basketball. And I was preaching the same thing 10 years ago. 10 years ago about being personalized, being timely, about using the tools at your disposal and being relevant. Yet we have come from that moment 10 years ago, and we're still talking about that same topic 10 years ago. So I think there has
Crazy.
been a lot of different avenues that people have tried, but I do think the core of all of this is to be human. You have to be
Yes.
human. People want to talk to humans, not robots.
Yeah, and like the whole spray and pray era that we're exiting, right? It was more about like come up with a segment of accounts through which a single message should resonate. Let me spray out the addressable market with that messaging, and then again, like go signal chasing and be reactive to what like hits and comes back. And I think there's 3 points of like relevance we need to hit on in our outbound messaging, especially. It's relevance at the account level. Why should your company be talking to mine now? Relevance at the individual level. Here's something I know about you that's maybe so specific. It infers and proves that I actually did a level of research on you before reaching out. And then the third one is here's who we know, and here's some customer stories that are relevant to you, or here's a shared connection. And like on that front, Eric, I don't think I even heard the term go-to network until maybe a couple of years ago, maybe even more recently. But talk a little bit about what go-to network means. What is that? And what are you guys building at Comsor that kind of addresses that?
Yeah, I want to first challenge the idea of personalization versus relevance. What
Mm,
is the defining points between each and what differs between each point? Because I personally will disagree, respectively, that personalization is a waste of time. And I think it's been an overabundance of the idea of, hey, Eric, I saw that you have like hats backwards. I think this would be, and that personalization has been
is
long extruded
irrelevant.
to the point
Yeah.
of mundane nuisance. I might as well
Wow.
use the same clogged pipelines that my neighbor does after a bad night at Taco Bell. Like,
Oh
you
no.
can miss me with that. But what it does come into a fruition point is refining your list. I think the list has overpowered the point of relevance and, well, again, hearsay in the gray line of definitions. But again, between the personalization and relevance, the relevance is pertaining to the list of what is actually obstructed in your messaging. And I will say that back down to the greater point of refining your TAM, refining your SAM, refining your ICP definition down to a criteria point of 4 different tiers. Then you bring down the relevance to even greater finite point. Then you start reaching out with the relevance. Um,
Oh,
again,
really?
Oh,
we had someone jump in. I like it. But again, that may be the obstructed mindset of this one. But go to network. Go to network is I would say the oldest trick in the book in that we're just kind of recreating the virtual Rolodex, and that idea of leverage who you know rather than what you know. Again, to Lindsay's point, right? It's the exact same ideology that we were using 10 years ago people buy from people they know and trust. So how do we leverage them? How do we activate them? And most importantly, how do we continue to sell through them without tarnishing that relationship? So the quick
But
plug is, right, it's ComSort, man. We're doing it.
but in general, right, why ComStore exists is because it takes a lot of time to figure out, even if I'm just using LinkedIn or kind of general means, who at my company is connected to who at this company, or who from my book of business is connected to people over here. And then also understanding the strength of the connection is pretty difficult. Because like if I look at my 20,000 plus or whatever LinkedIn connections, how many of these people do I really know to the extent that I'd be comfortable making a referral for another third party is probably like 1,000 of them at max. How are you
Right.
kind of helping folks, I guess, yeah, make stronger go-to network connections and plays, Eric?
Here's a fun idea that I'll actually kind of like do a slingshot answer. You know, the
Okay.
predictive revenue model is inherently broken. I think we can come to an agreement that the last 18 to 24 months have proven that what we did on predictable conversions has now led to, well, burnt run rates and bloated CACs to LTV models. Like it's just convoluted noise at this point. So in that sense, what we're refocusing on, and again, I say we, but I think, you know, specific people who are driving in this market is they're all focused about revenue conversions. You know, move away from the idea of I need to have 100 meetings. I need my pipeline to reflect. Meetings is
Yeah.
inherently a vanity metric, right? And so again, I don't care if I have 15,000 people on connected on LinkedIn. That's hearsay, right? Like, what does that do for me now? If I have a good connection with 100 of those, that I can almost, with a good assumption, say that they're going to convert at a 70% clip. I'll take that over the 15,000 any day song and dance. So I think
Hmm.
it's the idea then, and again, to compound off Lindsay's approach, is that Omni style, right? Leveraging the 4 or 5, 6, shoot, send carrier pigeons if you can, any sort of channel that will allow you to break through the noise, but then have the back channel ability to say, hey, I spoke to your team, I spoke to the ICs, I spoke to the ones that this will actually, my solution and or practice will actually make an impact to. This is what y'all said. By the way, this is how it's relevant to you, right? And having
Love
that
that.
ability to kind of merge the ideas. So again, slingshot answer. Hopefully that answered it, not a long-winded situation, but you know, where it's the foot against the curb is what it's called. Anyways, point being though, time to show up and show off.
Love it. Yeah. You got to do the work, right? You got to work those connections. You also got to say something smart to those connections that would want to inspire them to be an advocate on your level. So it requires even more research, I think, at times to like leverage your network appropriately versus just being annoying. Like, hey, I saw you know this person. Like, can you help me out? Like, no. Lindsay, how are you leveraging your network?
Oh my goodness. I have a similar challenge to you, Josh, where I've got a lot of connections and I've got to really, they had tags and then they took them away and then blah, blah, blah. And I think they're back. But for me,
Mm,
it's about getting my ICP first and foremost, like Eric was talking about, getting that ICP and then looking at who are my first degree connections and then what really helps me is when I connected with them, it'll have the date. And so I can be like, okay, I was at this company then when I connected with them. So is this relevant to them where they are now? And then looking at what I can find in Omni about what has happened at the account level has been really monumental. But leveraging my network, I mean, I do it every day. I'd say I have time blocks in my day for prospecting and leveraging my network because that's where you want to go first. And then another thing I've done recently is everyone has opinions about events and trade shows and dinners, etc. But what I've been doing is when I get people's business card or if I set up a meeting with them preemptively before the event, I will ask permission to allow me to text them. And that has also helped as another channel for me. But I ask
yeah.
permission first because I do feel like it's very personal to text somebody and I don't want to break that rule of like the personal versus professional. So that's been helping a lot too because I'll even say at the event, listen, but when you come back to your office on Monday, you're going to get 150 emails from all the vendors here. So is it okay if I shoot you a quick text so we can coordinate a calendar time or book it
Mm.
there at the event? So that's also been helping me recently as well.
I love that. Yeah, you're in a better spot, right? When you have text engagement when we're textually active, dare I say, on the sell side. See, I knew Eric would like that one.
So dumb.
But you need to add permission though, right? Or you need to ask for permission. Don't just start texting someone after a discovery call. That's probably annoying.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, awesome. Let's switch gears a little bit because I think we would all agree that we're still in this era of saturated sales messaging in all the channels. And like, I don't know, what do you guys think about? Feel free to this is maybe a dangerous question, but in the chat, everyone who's attending, what do you think about when someone says to the word salesperson to you? Right? Not to like fill in the answers, but for me, I often think of like a used car salesman or someone pushing some product or service on me that I don't need. We kind of have these negative connotations when it comes to sales and salespeople that probably come from poor salesmanship or poor sales experiences and engagements that we've had, whether it's an annoying cold call or someone showing up and knocking on the door trying to sell us solar. Happens every day here in California. Whatever the case is, right? Like the wrong sales outreach at the wrong time sucks. And I think we all get that probably at a higher level or volume than the opposite, which is, wow, someone calling me with a really good, strong message, and I actually need this thing right now. How'd they know that? And probably we would agree that some things in the space also impact us, whether it's um, hiring an SDR as a corporate spy and engaging in espionage, or lying to your investors about your success metrics and your churn metrics, right? Sometimes, like the stories that get a lot of the headlines are the negative ones. Uh, is that impacting the good salespeople today in a new way too, Eric?
I'd say, I mean, challenge it to the same idea, right? The noise of the bad outbound is outweighing and distracting from the good, right? And so those who actually are putting the time and effort into the personalization get overshadowed by the, hey, I saw you like Josh's post. Well, yeah, man, he's a bald brother. Like, of course I'm going to like it. So it's that ideology that comes into the nuance of like, what is a good salesman versus what is a bad? That's a subjective and convoluted term. But I think it's through the idea of like moving away from the salesman term or salesperson term, excuse me,
Thank
to a
you.
consultant. Excuse me on that. That salesperson term to a consultant idea, being a relationship advisor. And that's why I'm bullish. And you mentioned, hiring SDRs. I will take somebody that's coming in from an outside field any day in between. I think those who have worked hospitality, teachers, any sort of customer success or customer service, those individuals have already built the kind of foundational practices that they need to be, so that way they have that rapport ability, that ability to communicate, establish that connection. I'm monologuing here, but again, that's kind of something that's
Yeah.
dear
No,
dear to
like
my heart. Where
beware
that
maybe like the sales person that just is strictly money motivated and wants to bang out sales. I like what you said there because I've also seen a lot of folks from other fields, including myself. I was a social worker, I'm a philosophy major. I had no intentions of getting into sales, but I think my background in helping people with like scary life scenarios and situations has made me kind of a better consultant on the business side because I actually care to listen to hear their problems and kind of peel that onion before recommending and jumping in with some assumed solution. Right? So, Lindsay, how are we feeling about kind of, yeah, the current state of things? And is any of this like negative news headlines impacting your day to day or not so much?
Not so much for me. However, we are seeing a trend that I mentioned in the beginning of the webinar about, people publicly shaming salespeople. And I even have seen in comments where salespeople will defend salespeople because that organization that you're prospecting into also has a sales team that are doing
Mm,
the exact same thing we're doing. So I think it's really bullish and not a great tactic for people blowing up salespeople's LinkedIn messages or emails because it's just they're not highlighting the good ones that there are out there. So yes, it
yeah.
has been a difficult time to go
Yeah.
and do that. Yeah.
The public shaming seems corny, even if maybe somewhat warranted at times. Like to go on LinkedIn and put somebody on blast because you didn't like their sales outreach seems unnecessary.
Yeah.
Why is that happening more? Is it because the messaging is actually that terrible, or are people just annoyed of
I think
the amount of
people are
messages.
there for the impressions. A lot of people are trying to build their brand, which you can't blame them. Building your brand is very important, but they're doing it in that way to get more decision makers to chime in and like their post because they probably face the same kind of thing. But this, in the same vein, it's like their department also has a sales team that are probably doing the same thing. So
Yeah.
I think that's where it becomes this whole notion of the multi-threading. I think some people are going way too far in, tapping every day or every other day on email, and then it gets convoluted, and then you're going to get marked as spam, and then you'll never get into the inbox. So you've got to be careful and be very delicate in the approach of using your emails wisely, using your emails wisely, using your messages wisely, and branching outside of your comfort zone, whether it be video, whether it be gifting, whether it be texting, if allowed, right? So you've got to leverage your sources there.
I'll come in quickly
Makes
and
You
just
know,
kind of like put a
I
different point of view in this. Is this idea of like, I've learned a lot from those public shaming posts. When I've seen something and they put it on blast in the sense of like, hey, this one sucked. I'd be like, oh shit, okay. Well, actually, let me go in and edit this one real quick. And so there's been a lot of times where I've sitting there and gone back to the drawing board based on maybe my ICP post and like, hey man, this didn't hit it, and this may be why. Is there ways to go about it 110%? If they're saying SDRs suck and here's why, yeah, go kick rocks, brother. But if they're saying, hey, this didn't land in the inbox, I'm gonna block out who actually sent this to me and point out ways that it didn't work. I think that's doing a bit of a value justice in the sense of, hey, teaching those who are listening.
Are you saying there's valid, like, constructive criticism hidden within all the haterade there?
I mean, in a sense of, because I'm sitting there, I tend to play in that sandbox a little bit too myself, in the sense of like, hey, if I'm going to call out the BS, but there's going to be some tangibles to walk away from it. I'm not going to sit here and just blast the SDR because I think it's a mundane, over repetitive job. What I'm going to do is say, hey, we can actually enable them and coach them and actually improve their outreach, their abilities too. And so again, where I'm saying one doesn't fall in one category, I also think that there's a lot of value that can come from displaying in a professional manner, mind you, ways that they got outreach. They didn't like it.
Ultimately, you want to provide value, right? You want to be that guide, like you said, right? So, I mean, there's people that does things purely for activity or impressions, or there's people that does it to be genuinely helpful. And I think sales from first principles is just about just try to actually genuinely add, some value, right? You're not there to like make a shit ton of, cold calls and send a shit ton of email. You're not there for the activity. You're there to actually connect the dots, right? Match the buyer and sellers and help them solve a problem. I mean, just from coming from a buyer's perspective, right? I mean, I bought a ton of different software and products, with this company, with my previous companies. Every single one of our vendors that we work with, I'm on either text or Slack connects with every single vendor, with every single one of their sales reps, right? And the reason why I use them is because when I text the sales rep, like at 7 p.m., they'll respond, right? If I have any like random stupid questions, they just generally try to be helpful. They're connecting me to the right people in the company, so on and so forth, right? Like they actually make our product better. It's a win-win situation. That's why we're paying them all the money. So,
This is why we worked 80-hour sales weeks in sales, is because of CEOs like David texting us late at night, but that's okay.
Right.
I earned this hairline.
So
it's a win-win,
I want to bring our attention to chat, actually, where we're getting some really good questions here.
Okay. Let's check out the chat. I've added the Lineable network. Nice,
There's a
dog.
question there about the best hooking subject lines for cold or warm emails. I can take that, Josh.
Please, Lindsay.
Yeah, thanks for asking, Max. Referred by has the highest response rate. I think it's like 500% more than a typical subject line. However, you've got to use that permission of that person to get referred by. If you can't
Probably wise.
otherwise, yeah. If you don't have the reference or the referral, I usually use a subject line, something relevant to something that happened to them personally. Maybe it's something that they posted on LinkedIn, so reference that in the subject line. Maybe it's a quote. Maybe they were recently in an earnings statement and you quote, 3 words that they said in the earnings statement. So it shows that you did your research before you're outreaching to them. Because if you think about it, most people are on the go or they're in a meeting and they might have their phone underneath, the table, or they might be traveling. You only get like 2 seconds to capture their attention. So you've got to have a good, strong subject line. And then the preview text needs to be relevant. If your preview text says, "Hope you are well," you are done. You are done. It's not 2020 anymore. So you've got to have a hook that is relevant to something they did on LinkedIn. Maybe they recently went to a conference. You can ask how their time was at the conference. You can mention something that they posted about, or an earnings statement, or some quote that they've been in. Those are my biggest hooks.
I'll even
Great
double
feedback
down
there.
on that and say I like to align with this kind of format that I learned once upon a time, but it's the facts, the cracks, and the impacts. That's how you're going to construct this idea, be it between your heading or the first line that Lindsay pointed on. Because I've actually heard, and again, this is just because I sell to sellers, so be it, take it from a grain of salt, is that they disregard the heading and their eyes naturally gravitate towards the first line in that subject matter, that preview. And so I've found that if I even have, let's call it mundane for lack of a better term, that 3 syllable, like improve your CPS or improve, right? It's going to say sales, but if it's relevant and if it kicks down that door, like Lindsay was saying, that first line should be where the attention drives into, right? If I were to email Josh and I would say, I can grow all your hair back, I can guarantee that he's going to kind of open that up, contrary to David, right? So again, it's kind of that point of, yeah, got the hat on today. It's kind of that point of, again, capturing that audience, capturing that attention, and then personally speaking, come in for that relevance.
And I'll just chime in there too. I'm a decision maker on a lot of different tools as well. You have to put yourself in the decision maker or prospect's mind as well. I get called at least 10 to 15 times a day by cold callers. I also get prospected via email, via LinkedIn, all the channels that we're talking about. And I can tell you that if it's not personalized, if it's not relevant, and if they don't actually look at where I work, I still get cold calls from 2 companies ago, and I'm just flabbergasted that they didn't have the chance to look me up on LinkedIn to see where I'm at today.
Yeah, they're
So,
inferring they didn't do any base level of research prior to that call, so they're dead on arrival and wasted a call. Yeah.
correct. Yes.
And Max's second question is interesting because like this is what I'm hearing a lot. Cool. Thanks for helping me, right, understand how to personalize my emails, but how do I do that at scale? In a way that doesn't feel like spray and pray, but is still spray and pray. And like I would just say to that, my advice is to don't do that because it is a very difficult thing to pull off, especially in this new era of deliverability being much more difficult, needing to warm up 50 different email domains, right? If the task is to send out 1,500 emails at once. So like my response to Max's second question would be don't do that at all, but do you have different advice?
No, I agree with that. You've I think there needs to be a new shift on, instead of activity, it needs to be quality. Quality over activity, because when you are just held to, do 50 calls a day and 25 emails a day, I'd rather have 15 really good personalized emails that I spent time on, or in mails, even better, or DMs, the best once you get access to their first degree connections. That is where I would spend my time. But I understand there are leaders out there that are very activity focused and throw spaghetti at the wall and hope it sticks. That's just not the way that's working for me
Yeah.
personally today, and or teams that I've led in the past.
Okay, awesome. And I want to switch to actually show some prospecting methods that Lindsay and Eric are using today to kind of bring it home, especially on that last question, which is maybe their LinkedIn information is not updated, right? Like LinkedIn's one potential source, but we can also leverage language models and AI now to look in more places than just LinkedIn to find interesting information for us. Before we do that, as one of the balded elders here on the call, I did want to just take a second to like provide some historical context, right? Like I think we all feel that maybe the macro environment, don't call it a recession, but maybe the uncertainty of the economic times, or at least we would probably agree that at the corporate level, we're in this age of tool consolidation and risk aversion. Um, like where, like I forgot what I was gonna say, but anyways, like my first job was in 2008, and so my perspective as a salesperson comes from starting off in a much more difficult actually environment in 2008 where I didn't have power dialers or an SEP even to help me, I was making 150 dials a day. The requirement that I was on the phone 3 or 4 hours of call time a day. And 1 out of 750 phone calls for me in 2008 was a closed won deal. So it was very much getting my start at a time period that was difficult, that was defeatist, but also allowed me an opportunity to start my sales career somewhere, cutting my teeth, having the most difficult sales job I've ever had as my first one, which kind of helps me, right, in 2025, because I remember that it was actually harder at one point than it is now. Would you say, like, what would your advice be, Lindsay, or maybe Eric first, if you don't mind? What would your advice be to like a 21-year-old first-time sales rep that's trying to get going today?
Man. Okay. So you touch on something that's near and dear to my heart, and that's what does it take to be maybe like let's call it a successful seller, but also what kind of tips and tricks are we allowing to? I think those who are not, let's call it quote unquote successful, are those who acquire business acumen, understanding their prospects, understanding their market, their industry, the leadership that they attain to, the ripple effect of what happens beside implementing their platform. I think the ones who are going to show up and show off and really kick down the doors are the ones who are the most curious. Now, we can actually point to the SDR having the bad messaging, or maybe the AE slipped on discos, but it really funnels down from leadership. Leadership has kind of, in this last 18 to 24 months, has kind of been on this rug pull of going, crap, what I knew in the last 10 years of my career development is now shifting. And now their ass is on the line. So they're unable to actually give the right guidance, the right coaching to their team. I've been the recipient of it, and I've probably given it, been, on both sides of the spectrum. But what I think that most people are going to be overachieving on is when they actually start to reach out to their prospects without the angle, without the card in their pocket of let me sell to you, and genuinely learn what's going on in their world, what is going to impact their life, what's in it for them, how does it actually make a difference to the person on their left and right. Understanding that, and then going back and drafting out their own unique approach into things, be it talking to the ICs,
Yeah.
talking to the individuals, talking to the leadership, top down, left, right, who cares, competitive
Wait,
motions.
wait. Your advice is to genuinely care about the prospect
I would
before
actually go
reaching
into
out?
fact,
What?
I'll go in for the latter. Maybe not care, but genuinely be curious. So it's more
Okay.
about the impact that it may be about the charisma, or maybe that. And I'll take that in a different way because, again, I'm a money motivated seller who's got a table that I need a supply for. What that comes down to is how can I make it better so that way both parties win.
I love that. And I would say to any young salesperson, like, actually pick your job. Like, don't just take any sales job. Like, a lot of sales tech, if you don't generally care about it or aren't interested in it, or it's boring to you, probably it's going to be hard for you to manufacture like the genuine care, right, about the prospect. Lindsay, anything you want to add that you would tell maybe like a 21-year-old first-time salesperson getting started in 2025?
If you wouldn't respond to it, why would they?
Ooh.
So think about before you click an email or a DM, read it to yourself or hold it on your phone and see what it looks like on your phone, because people are often on the go. If you wouldn't respond to it, why would they? That's my biggest
Amen.
advice, because that's how I got started in my career, was social selling back 10 years ago. And I've stuck with that, and that's continued to work for me and for my teams.
I love that. And we've talked about personalization and relevance. To me, it's what value am I giving this person in my message? Am I calling out something about their business that's so insightful or novel that they're intrigued, that it proves that I did this level of research to know them at a deeper level? Or am I saying something generic that's off-putting? And there's a big line in between those two things. So I think that's a good segue. We got 15 minutes left. Lindsay, maybe would you mind just showing how you're using Omni today to get to those golden nuggets of relevance that you can then use in your prospecting?
I'd love to. All right. Can you see Omni right here?
Uh,
There we
yep,
go.
looks like it's
Now,
thinking.
can you see
Yep,
it?
we got it.
Okay, excellent. So if I were prospecting Omni, now this is not my ICP by any means for where I'm at today, but what I like about Omni is that it's one page of places to go. And back, before Omni, I would spend, and Josh can attest to this, I would spend hours upon hours creating an account plan of how am I going to get into this account. With Omni, my favorite part is that you can train it with whatever you put in your company's value prop as to tell you the AI strategy of how I could get into this account. So for instance, if this is the first one, it will tell you what Omni's opportunity is and how the company I'm working for can get into that company with the reasoning. So 15 minutes before I go on a call, I will pull up Omni. I will look at the reasons as to how we could help them. And then my call plan is essentially done. I don't have to spend 8 pages of research of my own time to get into an account. I can just look at the reasonings as to how I could get into this company based on the AI strategy. And then it'll even give you the source, which is awesome.
And I could attest this is actually a very relevant AI strategy for us. As an AI company, power is actually one of the main bottlenecks. But anyways, please continue.
Well, we should talk later, David. But
There you
I
go.
like
We are
how
a prospect. Yeah.
I like how it has the source as well, because that way I could mention that source in the email outreach or LinkedIn outreach that I give that person, or video outreach, right? Then it also has additional reports that you can look at, events, etc. And you can even take it a step further, find your contacts, import them. And then there's even a sequences option where you can create a sequence. You can go in there and it will even integrate with LinkedIn, which is highly, highly beneficial to me because I'm always context switching between, LinkedIn Sales Navigator, LinkedIn.com, context switching. This helps you alleviate that.
Gotcha. So do we think, I know Eric prospected you last year to no avail.
True
Do we
story.
think if he
True
had
story.
a tool like Omni to do more research that you might have been more interested if he was driving value from the first whatever he did last year?
I think so. And I'm just curious, was I nice, Eric?
You didn't even respond to my videos.
Oh,
Okay.
he made videos too.
And I got
Lindsay.
receipts. No. Yeah, for those who are watching, I actually did prospect Lindsay back when she was at her prior endeavor. It was a perfect ICP, but it goes to show, right? The curse of the masses affecting the few. Even though I showed up and showed off, I stuck to the omni-channel approach. I tried to leverage Josh and he was, blockading my approach. It was still,
You
following your
should have showed
tactics.
up in front of Lindsay's office and recorded a video. That's what you were missing. You did it in your home office.
Yeah, I would have gotten the cops called on me, but needless to say, it's an effort worth trying, if nothing less.
Yeah,
It's
I
an
think
important
it's
go.
no, I just think it's about persistence as well. I'm not here to tell everyone that one video is going to change your life and one video is going to get 100% response rate, but I am here to tell you that the persistence behind the video will get you the meeting. Using
You
your
gave up too
referral.
early, Eric. Yeah.
Well, and I'm playing the laws of likelihood to Lindsay's point, right? Just because the 1-to-1 didn't reach, the 1-to-5 may, or the 1-to-10 may. So no, Lindsay's on point with that. Again, it was a shot and well taken.
Yeah.
No, I mean, I think. Oh, go ahead, David.
I would say as a buyer, the persistent point is actually very important, right? Is if you know that's a good fit, actually do be persistent because I get a ton of email all the time as well from different providers, and if it's a good fit, like sometimes just not the right time, and it might I may not respond to the email, but I'll read it, and in the back of my mind, I'll be like, I hope he's got me on a sequencer because I want him to remind me in like 3 months, right,
Mhm.
where when we're actually going to be purchasing this, and I'll get another email, and then I'll actually make a move. So in some ways, if it's actually a really relevant fit and they actually solve a real problem for us, I actually want to be outreach regularly, right? I want them to be persistent. That's actually helpful for me because it's a reminder.
Yeah.
Let me ask
That's
a question I don't think is asked often. Is there a such thing as over persistence? Because we can look at a template, or let's talk at a sequence. I could put in 30 steps, hit you every day. I could put you right. Like, what is the line from persistence to over persistence?
That's a good question. Well, so for me personally, I think it can't be too I could tell when sequence is too generic, right? A sequence should if you're gonna sequence me, right, and the email should only make sense for me and me only, right? I could tell if it's just like some generic template. So that's one, because if it's actually if the email is actually talking about a problem that I actually know I have right now, then then I look forward to kind of getting the updates essentially. The second one here is the sequence should actually, it should actually do try to add some value. So usually the best sequence I get are stuff like, you know, I know you're looking at, I don't know, different contact databases, right? We have these other customers that are in your similar position with these contact databases, and they reduce their customer complaints by X%. And if this is your type of problem, then you should try to use us. Like that's a very relevant problem for me right now because that's something I think about all the time. And even if we're not in the mood to purchase new contact databases, I want them to just reach out to me in 3 or 4 months, as a reminder. And the third one here is like don't sequence them on a weekly basis. Do draft. I think everyone's kind of impatient, but sometimes for these kind of big purchase decisions, right, you do want to just kind of understand that the buyer is not on a super tight timeline, right? So sometimes it takes a long time to make a purchasing decision. So I actually drag the sequence out for, 6 to 7 months. I think a lot of time actually it's actually gonna give you a lot better results.
Yeah, I think we like to Lindsay's earlier point, like since COVID, we're a little bit more empathetic maybe on the sales side, and so a little bit more prone to giving up earlier. And I used to have a sales boss back in the day, of course, that told me keep going until you get a cease and desist. Until they tell you to F off, you're calling too much, keep calling, keep emailing, like keep the volume high. And so, yeah, I think when the opportunity is qualified and already to a point, like that's true. You got to carry that momentum or things tend to die off, and it could be
I would
because
say
of your lack of volition. Yeah.
just play long-term games, right? Like I
Yeah.
think I think if you set your sequencer setting to like email them like once every 2 days, like I think that you're playing short-term games. So I think it's
Yeah.
I think you could kind of like Lindsay said, right? Like kind of prospect the way that you like to be prospected. So I think you know when you're overreaching, right? So just play
Yeah.
long-term games and just be patient.
I don't want to give Eric some time to shine too, because like to Lindsay's point, I know like research takes time. Now there's kind of no excuse, right, to not do it. Like you have more tooling available to you, whether it's Omni or Perplexity or ChatGPT, you can get a level further in a lot less time now, right? Like using AI. So I think we all used to probably rely a lot on our discovery skills to get a lot of good information live on a call. But now you have the opportunity to transform how well your discovery call goes by showing up to that first call really well informed with data that you might have otherwise asked about. And when you ask someone on a discovery call, you kind of then have to peel the onion, right? Like no one's willing to tell you about all of their worst problems on a first call. You have to build that rapport. You have to build that relationship to get to that insight. But if you can show up to the call with that insight already gleaned, you're now already at the middle of the onion. And so that's everyone's onus now as a salesperson to show up more informed, like do a better job in preparation. And there's no excuse not to. And one of the things you can do is, yeah, think about who you know in this account. So, Eric, do you mind showing off how you're leveraging GoToNetwork in the last
Yeah.
5 minutes here?
Yeah, so ComStore inherently just provides your team with warm intros to execute. And what that means is that we connect through various points of your network, be it LinkedIn, email, CRM, third-party data provider. We bring it all so that way you can see not only who's connected to who, but how well are they connected to them. And so where ComStore becomes a bit unique is that we're going to automate a lot of that workflow, be it these playbooks that I'm showing here, which is, for the top example, a list of companies that I'm looking to prospect, be it these 300 key accounts, based on the network or my network and my extended network between my advisors, investors, current customers, friends, shoot, even my dog walker. I have 171 people that are relevant to the specified persona that I put in there, be it VP of sales in this example. Counter to that, I have this people search, which I'm looking out throughout my entire network, again, to my investors, advisors, execs, frontline leaders, whoever I have invited in. And I'm looking for anybody that knows somebody that's a VP of sales within the company between 2 and 1,000. Now, what it comes to after that pipeline does actually populate is that we can see not only how many people are connected within these playbooks, say, for example, that company account playbook, in which case these are the 300 accounts that I'm looking to get in contact with. I have 171 personalized points of introduction, but I can see the strength of that relationship. And so here, if it's one bar, may not be relevant. Again, my likelihood of conversions increasing to 70% happens when I go to 2 or more bars of strength of relationship. And so I'm going to narrow down that search. So again, all about the quality versus quantity. And so all of these individuals, I can have a high likelihood of them converting based on the relationship I have already pre-established.
That's
Man,
really
that's
cool.
super, Yeah, it's a super sweet tool. I think especially when they're thinking about the strength of connection, right? To our earlier point, like that's the most important thing is we're all in the business of disqualification. But yeah, if we can use that as a means to kind of get down to who our true evangelists and champions are as third parties and leverage them, those are always like the best plays, right? And I'll take it even a step further. My favorite thing to do after a good discovery call is to bring in a customer reference on the second call, right? If and then I can just sit back and let an existing customer talk about how awesome we are to a prospect. Those calls always go well and often like circumvent the need of the prospect to then have to like go through some long, arduous trial or proof of concept or multi-thread and build a business case. If they're hearing how awesome you are with real success metrics from a real customer's voice, man, like you can get to, closed one much, much faster. So that'll be my last little tidbit.
Imagine doing
Go-to
that from the top
network
of
doesn't
funnel.
yeah, so but to my yeah, exactly. But go-to network, it doesn't end, right? Once the lead is created, you should continually leverage your network as best you can throughout the entire sales cycle.
Oh yeah.
Lindsay, any parting words for our audience?
I mean, the biggest thing I'll say is there's this famous quote, your network is your net worth. I agree with that statement every day, and you utilize it how you can. Don't get inundated with tool overload. However, definitely, explore what Omni can do because it has helped me tremendously in my everyday prospecting journey. But, you know, leverage the things that you think are super simple that are really actually, video. Leverage that, try it out. You don't have to be perfect. If you stumble, that's actually even better because then you can make a joke of it and you can be more human. So don't think you have to be a news reporter where you have to get every word right. Just be yourself.
I love that advice too. And like I've seen you make videos from like, yeah, your car, like the parking lot of a grocery store. That stuff comes across as super authentic because it's like, wow, she's not just like sitting in her office, like blasting out video. She's like on the fly, like in between errands, right? Like it means
Yep.
more in that context.
Yep.
Eric, any parting words for our audience today?
Yeah, don't be afraid to reach up and reach out, even if it's not to your immediate leadership. A lot of times they are siloed with the information that they have. And so if you feel like you need more or you need something extra, reach out to those who have been in that same path or maybe something similar and ask what they have done, what are they seeing, and just expand on your business acumen. That's going to make it compound dividend payoff.
Yep. And my last thing would be quality over quantity. Guys, slow down. Like the volume-based sales plays are the ones that are saturating the market and aren't working as well, no matter how clever your messaging may be. So think about your company. Like you obviously built a product or service. You made a thing with a certain customer in mind. Who are the top 10 of those customers that you've yet to secure, yet to win? Slow down and think about what's your strategy for getting those guys and quality over quantity. We are now in this new era, which is much more like the old era of sales. Embrace it. Embrace doing less. Embrace less noise and embrace the concept of driving value in more of a qualitative way, even if it takes longer to get to that messaging versus the spray and pray era of the past. So that's my last advice. David, any parting words from you, sir?
That's such a good parting word. But I mean the last thing I will leave everyone was is I think there's definitely a lot of noise in the space. There's a lot of it's definitely a pretty interesting time right now, right? But I think was every crisis comes an opportunity, right? And I think the opportunity here is if you really do the work, you will really stand out from like literally everybody else, right? Like everybody's inundated with so much inbound, but if you actually do the work and use your network or do what Lindsay does and just like do the extra layer of research and extra layer of, just like very, very tailored outreach, you'll stand out, right? And you'll be way ahead of anybody else. And that's an opportunity.
Hmm. Amen. All right, guys, appreciate the time. Thank you for blessing us with an hour out of your day. Now, everyone get back to work and think about qualitative messaging.
All
Thanks,
right. Thanks,
everyone.
Thanks.
guys. See
Yep.
ya.
Thanks, Eric. Thanks, Lindsay. Appreciate it.
Guys.
Yep.